Welcome to this week's installment of the show where we decide if classic comedies hold up, are they still funny, do they still matter? And this week we're doing one that's about 15 years old, the 2005 romp Wedding Crashers.
It's wedding season, kid!
The premise being they go to crash weddings they're not invited to sleep with women. Quite a devious plot.
I don't understand the concept.
You never done this before?
I have never done this before. I really don't understand the concept because if given the choice, I'm not going to a wedding.
Why? It's gonna be so much fun!
It's gonna be so much fun!
Even if I know the people, even if I know the people and like the people, if they said to me like, hey, you don't have to come to the wedding. Like, we'll just do like a little outdoor barbecue or something after the fact, or we just want to have something. Be like, cool.
I love your enthusiasm.
You're going to a wedding of people you don't know.
Yes.
I hate that.
Why don't we do something like, let's say a giraffe?
I just want a bicycle!
Why are you yelling at me?
If you could get away with not doing that, I would be all about that.
A wedding you don't know very many people is pretty awful until you get deep into the open bar and then you start to be okay with it a little bit.
I'm ready to get drunk.
So the idea that these two guys are going to weddings where the only other person they know is, so Owen Wilson knows Vince Vaughn knows Owen Wilson. They only know each other. So they're forced, and this is what they want to do. They want to make small talk with women so that they can sleep with them, which is no guarantee. They make it seem in this thing like they have this down to a science that every single wedding they're going to they're getting laid.
Rule number 6.
Rule number 5.
Rule number 32.
Rule 16.
Rule number 76. Rule number 115.
Rule number 1. Never leave a fellow crasher behind.
And they're clearly what, in their 30s?
They're too old for this.
You imagine when you go to a wedding when you're in your 30s, there are not that many single people that are there. Like all the people that are in the wedding parties or whatever, they're attached to somebody. So, what's the play here? I mean, are we trying to actually believe that both of them are in their young 20s with a lot of, young folks that are not tied to somebody at a wedding? I mean, that's totally unbelievable.
And so I've never crashed a wedding because for the reasons you mentioned, I don't want to go to weddings that I have no attachment to begin with. But where are they finding the weddings? And then how easy is it to crash a wedding? I guess next wedding I go to, I'll look around the reception and see if it's just easy to walk in. I mean, you're not going to have a table setting. I
mean, I have to imagine it's very easy in most instances to just walk into a wedding.
I guess if you're not sitting down for dinner, if you're just kind of hanging out, you could probably get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or and the thing about weddings is that having had one, there are people that RSVP that they're coming, and then for whatever reason they can't make it because it's far enough out that you have to RSVP for it. And so maybe that's their play, is that they go to the cocktail hour, they hang out, they do their thing, and then wait for everybody to sit down, then go to the table with the cards and go, oh, okay, look, here's two people that, are not there, and then go and sit down at those tables. I have to imagine it's pretty easy for them to do, but it still doesn't explain why.
To get laid.
But no, I mean, yeah, but isn't it easier to just go to a bar where it's where it's likely that people are not actually attached to somebody and you don't have to I mean, are they bringing gifts to this? Are they they're definitely wearing nice clothes when they're going?
Yeah.
That's what just boggles my mind. Just go to a bar. You're looking to get laid, go to a bar.
I think the assumption that they're making with this movie is they're preying on the stereotype of women at a wedding who are single and who aren't getting married having some kind of jealousy or just trying to meet a guy. It's very sexist in that assumption too.
Tattoo on the lower back. Might as well be a bullseye.
The effort in finding a wedding and going to a different one every weekend just to try to hook up with a girl. But now with Tinder, if you've heard of these things, Bumble, Hinge.
I've heard of them. I have no experience on them, but I know that at this point, first this movie predates Me Too, which the Me Too movement, which
I think you said predates you. As well.
I mean, it does not predate me as well, but it also predates, as you point out, Tinder.
Yeah, you can do what they're doing from your couch now.
Yeah, absolutely. So and you don't have to worry about there's no season for Tinder. You put your stuff out there and you meet somebody and like everybody has an understanding of what the goal is here, you know? It's the problem that you run into with this movie is that it almost is, I mean, it's predatory.
Extremely.
It is extremely predatory because they're looking for people who are vulnerable and trying to take advantage of those people who are vulnerable. But then again, like one of the things that you keep going back to in this movie, not only are they predators and predatory, but like everybody in this movie, every character in this movie is predatory. Like you think about who is predatory in which way and who is taking advantage of somebody else. Everybody is.
Yeah.
The brother who's gay.
Let's play dummy sticks.
Isla Fisher. She's predatory.
Cause I'd find you.
Yep.
Sack Lunch, whatever.
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper. Yeah, shit, that's Bradley Cooper.
That's what we call a sack lunch. Nom, 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 nom.
Every single person in this movie is predatory.
Yeah.
In one way or another. The grandmother's racist.
The wife, though, Eleanor, big dyke.
That's almost the only way to make it work with the central point, because how would you garner sympathy for Owen Wilson's character if like he wasn't surrounded by assholes also? He's an asshole. Like his entire character is an asshole, but you're supposed to see this shift in him when he goes and falls in love with Rachel McAdams. Like you're supposed to all of a sudden start to like him, but you wouldn't forget that he's an asshole if he wasn't surrounded by Bradley Cooper asshole. Rachel McAdams' mother coming on to him, the gay guy tying up Vince Vaughn, like all these things that are also predatory going around, kind of minimizes the beginning where Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn are introduced as predatory guys.
So you're basically saying that this movie gaslights us, is what
Yeah,
happens.
it's like, what happens.
It's an hour and a half of gaslighting. Like, we're going to make it seem like, nah, these guys aren't so bad. They're not such bad predators taking advantage of these women in their times of mental anguish. Because everybody else is an asshole. So
Yeah.
it's cool. What they're doing is fun.
It's just a sea of assholes, and Owen Wilson looks like less of an asshole.
Wow.
It's really split into two movies, kind of. Like the first third, if it's even a third, it's a very short period of time, really, in the big picture, is Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson as these unattached bachelors going to weddings, and they go to the wedding of, I think Christopher Walken's character is the Secretary of State, Treasury, something.
Interior,
He's a cabinet,
something.
Yeah.
He's a cabinet man.
Yeah.
A very powerful man.
And they go to that wedding, which is a power move. That's bold to try to go to a wedding this large. And after that, when they go to his vacation home, that's like the next hour.
Yeah.
And the movie just completely shifts to Owen Wilson's in love with this character who he doesn't know at all. And then Rachel McAdams is in love with Owen Wilson, even though they've known each other for a weekend.
Yeah.
And I would say like Bradley Cooper's character is an asshole, and him being an asshole sets up this move for us to root for Owen Wilson and Rachel McAdams to get together.
You could just cut that psychobabble bullshit that your mom tells you, okay?
It just blows my mind when you really think about it. Like even if your fiance is a dick and doesn't pay attention to you, how are you falling deeply in love with this guy you met over the weekend who you don't even know his real name? The plot. I remember enjoying this movie when I first saw it in 2005, 2006, but every time I've rewatched it since, or even given it any critical thought like I am now, it's just fucking dumb.
What an idiot!
I mean, it was a comedy for its time, if we want to
Yeah.
even call it
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But think about they get right to the point to let you know how much of an asshole all of these people are, right? It does not take them very long to get to the first date rape joke. The first date rape joke happens when they're in that mediation with the husband and the wife.
That's it. Go comatose for me, baby.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
How is that okay?
Yeah.
That's not okay.
And I'm glad you brought the divorce scene in the beginning, because them being divorce attorneys kind of sets up their characters as being heartless. So I think we're kind of, again, gaslighted into just being okay with everything. The fact that I found this movie entertaining at the time, though, and I think a lot of people did, because at the time it was critically acclaimed as a comedy, not just didn't win Oscars and stuff. I mean, people liked it as a comedy. And it's on TV all the time. I think people who remember it from the time still do enjoy it to an extent. I think it just had a really short shelf life. Because it's interesting. We've talked about a lot of movies on the show from the 80s and early 90s that hold up better in a lot of ways than this does. I think this had an extremely short shelf life, and I think as time goes on, it's going to get even worse because the Me Too movement happened. Like, this kind of behavior is extraordinarily predatory. The date rape joke, like all those kinds of things. Everyone's taking advantage of somebody. But even the idea of crashing a wedding to sleep with someone, we said in the beginning, like, it makes no sense to us now. It's not going to make sense to anybody 30 years from now.
Yeah.
I think this movie is going to be, but better or for worse, kind of canceled. Like, just it's not going to live on.
So you think it's going to be one of those movies that ends up in the bargain bin box at the Menards right before the checkout, where it's like $2 for the movie, and like you buy the DVD? Well, I mean, not that we have DVDs anymore, really. Like, I'm dating myself, but like, you still go to stores and they've still got like DVDs on clearance that you can get for like $1 or $2. Like, this is probably one of them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. So Steve Carell said in an interview a year or two ago that a lot of the things that he did in The Office just don't hold up, and like they make him cringe. And there's some truth to that. There's some stuff in the beginning of the first few seasons of The Office that are a little cringy, even if you think they are okay to rewatch. I think it's going to be kind of like that because The Office came out in 2005. This came out in 2005. Maybe that was just a bad year. I think Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn might look back on this and be like, not our favorite one to think back of. Even at the time, though, it was well liked, it was well received. But I think now in 2020. And going on in the future, it does not hold up.
Even though it kind of launched both of their careers, like really, like, yeah, Vince Vaughn was in Swingers and Owen Wilson was in all sorts of different things. Like, but this seems to be like the movie that, like, if you go back and you're like, hey, what about Vince Vaughn or Owen Wilson? And they're gonna be like, oh yeah, wedding.
And it launched them as a duo because they did the internship movie.
Yeah.
What? But they're thought of kind of together in some ways because of this movie that people liked, but I don't know. Give it a rewatch.
I mean, I think they fall into that frat pack. Isn't that what they call them? The frat pack?
Yeah.
I mean, you can rewatch it, but man, I think it's a problem. I don't think it holds up, and I think that especially as you're watching it, like, you may get a couple of chuckles here and there, but I think they're going to have more cringes than chuckles.
I agree, and that's why I also agree it does not hold up.